Well, good morning to you. Good morning to everybody in Utica.
You have that same svelte, female, black dress, short hair, blonde, swaying back and forth vision in your mind?
Brunette. They were brunettes.
Were they brunettes?
They were all brunettes, yeah.
They were in the model of mannequins, right? Wasn't that
They were kind of like,
going for?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Ah, boy. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, Bill.
What a hell of a year, huh?
Can you believe it? It feels like, in some ways, it feels like 2 weeks. In other ways, it feels like 10 years.
It really does. So, but accomplishment. It looks like this tax deal is all but done. The House will be voting on it again today. What happened, by the way? There was some technicality in the... There was some confliction over what the Senate put out, and then they made some changes. Is that what went down?
Well, there's like a little technicality between the way these bills move back and forth between the House and the Senate. And essentially, when a bill moves from the House to the Senate, they have to include what's called a blue slip. They neglected to do that in the bill that the House passed. So Democrats in the Senate raised a stink about that. So the Senate passed it, and they're going to vote again on it this morning in the House. It'll be more of a technicality more than anything, just a way to delay the process a little bit more. Where that could end up being kind of throw a little bit of a thorn in the works for the White House is that the president is planning on leaving for Mar-a-Lago tomorrow, potentially, either tomorrow or Friday. And, you know, it's not as if as soon as the bill's signed or has been passed in the Congress that he can just sign it. It has to be enrolled. You know, there's a whole process. It could take 24 to 48 hours. They also have this whole issue of whether or not they're going to pass a continuing resolution to fund the government. So there's a chance that he may not actually sign this bill until the beginning of the year. That doesn't really change its practical implication, but it may prevent them from having, you know, a big signing celebration, because I doubt he's going to want to sign the bill in Mar-a-Lago because there could be an optics problem there.
It looks like Faso and Stefanik both voting no on this today. Does that surprise
that's right.
you?
There were 12 Republicans that voted no. Those were among the upstate Republicans that voted no, yes.
And it's happening in the high-tax states. So yesterday I was listening to... it was Kilmeade. I don't know who the interview was. But anyway, it was said, this is one of the senators who was saying, listen, this is going to be great for almost all Americans. And if you're in one of those high-tax states, well, you got to vote out your current legislators and your current politicians, or you got to move to one of these low-tax states. You buy that?
Well, I mean that's certainly an argument. I don't know if it's the best argument. I mean, people that live in those places where they live there for a reason, right? And you know, I don't know if a lower tax bill is enough to send someone to another state. It's certainly possible. Yeah. But I think that the situation with this tax bill is that we don't really know how it's going to impact people, right? It's one of these things that has to be implemented, and it has to run its course. And then, you know, there's so many differences in the tax code now than there was before after this bill is passed. You know, there may be a lot of people that just decide to take, the standard deduction now. You may not itemize as much as you did before. So there, you know, some of the arguments Republicans are making is, well, maybe you're going to pay a little bit more than you paid before, but you don't have to go through the whole process of hiring an accountant and going through the whole process of getting all of your receipts and all of your statements together, because the process is going to be so much easier. I think it's really impossible for us to really forecast what the average American and how they feel about this tax bill until they start to pay their taxes in 2018. And the question, I think, for Republicans is, are more Americans going to benefit from it, or at least feel the impression that they're benefiting from it? And does that happen before 2018? Because that could be the difference between whether or not Republicans hold on to the House and the Senate and whether or not they lose it.
Are they going to pass the? We're going to get through this cliff, right? This fiscal cliff that we're looking at this week.
Yeah, there's no appetite from Republicans or Democrats to shut down the government. Now, the question is, do they do a very short-term continuing resolution just to get them through the new year and then have a showdown of some kind in the middle of January? Or do they do something that looks to be a little bit more long-term? You know, Democrats could use this as an opportunity to perhaps get some sort of fix to DACA. They could ask for some sort of long-term solution for the CHIP program, the Child Health Insurance Program. Those are all possibilities, but it doesn't seem like Democrats want to run the risk of in any way being associated with the government being shut down, especially before Christmas. They're probably just going to pass something quickly that'll fund the military and defense, extend CHIP for a certain amount of time, and then come back and have that fight in the new year.
Yeah. I want to ask you, as we're talking about the new year and we're winding down here on the old year, when you look back on this year, which was a big year for you, I mean, you covered, you are in the midst of something that we've never seen before. And John Zogby earlier this morning called it a revolution in many different ways, not just in this country but around the world. What do you look back on as the big key moments that you reported on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me personally, the biggest moment of the year when I was there on Capitol Hill for the healthcare vote, and not just the fact that the healthcare vote was defeated, but the fashion in which it was defeated. You know, it was 2:00 in the morning, and John McCain, who even up until that point no one knew how he was going to vote, walked up to the front of the Senate floor and put the thumbs down, and it took us about 10 or 15 minutes to fully understand the move that he had made. And I think that, you know, I understood at that point in time that we were in a very volatile period of American government. But in that moment, you know, and all my colleagues that have covered Capitol Hill a lot longer than I have said that it never got to that point. You know, if a bill failed, you knew it was going to fail long before the voting started. It was rare. It's so rare to actually have to wait and see every single senator before they come up and cast a vote.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, personally, that was the moment that I thought was the biggest thing that I was, you know, right in the middle of. But, you know, I was in the room when James Comey testified in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee. That was a pretty dramatic moment. And then, you know, to see, you know, 3 members of the president's inner circle on his campaign being arrested, actually 4, one of them actually, you know, plead guilty to a federal crime. This has been just a fascinating and a type of year that I think is you know, history's going to look back at as one of the craziest in American history.
And you know, you mentioned health care. One of the issues in this tax deal that I think is really not being talked about as much as it should be is the mandate, the health insurance mandate penalty, and that will mean there will be really no incentive for people who don't want to get into Obamacare to get into it. And what they've really done is they pulled that last stick out on the kerplunk game, I think, because without the mandate, Obamacare cannot survive.
Right. I mean, the mandate is the glue that holds it all together. Yeah. You have to be compelled to sign up for health insurance, and there has to be a carrot and a stick there. You know, either we're going to give you an affordable health care plan, or we're going to penalize you for not signing up for health care. And if you don't do that, then, you know, that is what basically creates stability in the market. And if you're going to create a situation where no longer it's required under the law that you have some sort of health insurance, that's going to have a lot of people flee. I mean, if you've got, before when you had the option of, well, you can pay a $1,000 fine or you can pay $900 for a health care plan, people were going to sign up for a health care plan.
Yeah.
Now you've got, well, here's a $900 health care plan, maybe the price of which could potentially be even more volatile, or there's no penalty at all. I think you're going to see a lot of people just flee the health insurance market. Now, there's a good number of people that got in to the health insurance market because the prices were lower and they had that option. But now, the more people that leave that market, the higher the prices on these premiums are going to get. And you know, the whole plan with the Affordable Care Act was it was a long-term plan. The goal was to continue to enroll more and more people, with the thought process being that the more people in the health insurance market, the lower the cost of health care would be overall. You know, we weren't seeing that yet. It was too early on in the process, and this just kind of tracks back to what the president has always promised. He thinks that Obamacare's a mess. He wants it to blow up. Pulling out the individual mandate is part of that process. So what it does tell us, Bill, is that Republicans can't just ignore the fact that they have basically left a law in place that has no support.
Right.
And this is going to just create more instability in the health insurance market. The idea that they can just forget about this because they couldn't pass a fix is a fantasy. They're going to have to do something, and that's in addition to all the other things on the list of their agenda this year in 2018.
Okay, trivia time. And Ryan, you know the answer to this, but I'll throw this at Andrew and Manaski. Which political figure said just recently in an interview, Jared Kushner deserves to be investigated for his involvement in the Russia meetings? Anybody here? Come on, let's go.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say President Trump.
Was it President Trump? Wrong.
Michael Flynn?
Was it Flynn? Wrong. Ryan, we know it was Chris Christie.
Yeah, the New Jersey governor, Chris Christie, which, that's interesting on a number of levels. One, Christie was part of the transition, right? He was in charge of the transition until he was pushed out when they figured out that they'd actually won the election. But also, Christie has this long-term kind of back and forth with the Kushner family. When he was a U.S. attorney, he put Jared Kushner's father in jail. And a lot of people believe that Jared Kushner's role in the White House is part of the reason that Christie was kind of pushed out, even though he went out on a limb and endorsed Donald Trump at kind of a very unpredictable time in the election. So, Christie's a wild card. He's always been a wild card, and this is another example of that for sure.
All right, Ryan, it's been an interesting year. We appreciate all your time, and can't wait to see what comes of it. There should be bombs dropping, and hopefully not real bombs. But political bombs dropping in 2018, you just know it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, Merry Christmas to you guys. It's been a real pleasure to be back on the air in Utica every week, and you guys are my great friends, and have a very blessed holiday.
Well, we were friends until the roast of me. And then,
I was talking to Jeff and...
I figured. Yeah, that was
those guys.
And that other guy.
Right.
To new friendships, Ryan. Nice job at the roast.
I thought it was Manaski that was not memorable enough to remember his...
I just couldn't think of anything bad to say about Jeff. He's just too quality of a human being.
Well,
Good answer.
Good answer. Ryan Noble, CNN, thanks so much. Merry Christmas.
Have a good one.
All right. Do you see how you do that? You follow up with a Merry Christmas to someone who says Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be inclusionary here.
No, you're doing a good job.
Right?
Yeah. Can I one point on the...
You want to make a point? You're controlling the computer over there. You can do whatever you want.
You're right. Okay, I'll be quick on this. When we talked about, some politicians said, well, if you live in New York, change the legislature, vote the governor out, et cetera, et cetera. If you go back and look at the 2014 election, if every person, not registered voter, person in Oneida, Herkimer, Lewis, Madison, Shenango, and Otsego County voted for Rob Astorino, he still would have lost.
He still would have lost.
Every person, not even registered voter.
We had Brian Kolb on earlier this morning. I was going to bring that up.
I wanted to too.
Can an upstate guy become governor? And I got to say, do not forget that it was Governor Pataki who beat a then-Governor Cuomo, who had a lot of baggage of his own back then. So, and he's an upstate guy.